I am your host, Mitch Lafon. And of course, like every episode, it is brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival taking place August 9th and 10th at Parc Jean Drapeau in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. This year, it features performances by Metallica, Slayer, Offspring, Lamb of God, Anthrax, Twisted Sister, and more. But instead of saying and more, I'm going to tell you there's also Body Count, there's Nashville Pussy. I mean, you got to get to this festival. Check it out at heavymontreal.com. And this week, the co-host, because we are talking about Great White, is Alan Niven. You managed Great White.
Hello, Mitch. How are you? And it's good to be talking with you again. Entertaining that we're in the Great White North this time.
Yes, up in Canada. But speaking of the Great White, the Great White. Why was there no "the" in front of Great White, by the way?
It was just Great White. That just seemed to make more sense, and I have to confess that I was responsible for coming up with that name, and I wasn't a big fan of what they were called before, and there was a lovely moment where Jack was sitting in front of me and saying, "But we're going to lose our following." And I looked at him and I said, "You're worried about 65 people when we're going to take on the world?"
But you were right. You actually ended up taking on the world. Great White is a great story because they're more of this blues-based rock band, and you had to put them up against Duran Duran, against Culture Club, against hair metal, and you somehow managed to do it.
Well, it's a slight frustration in that, they get lumped into a genre and are called a hair metal band, which means to me that, if anybody does that, they really don't know the catalog of the band, because really, from my perspective, they're more akin to a 70s English blues rock outfit. Yeah. They're closer to Savoy Brown than they are to Poison.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And yet, that's where MTV and all the magazines lumped them in. They would go, oh, well, there was Poison, there was Rat, and yeah, there was Great White. And you go, yeah, I'm not sure. I think actually if you're going to start looking at those bands, Great White would be closer to maybe Tesla and Cinderella.
Absolutely. And there's actually a much bigger catalog of worthwhile songs under that band name than I think most people realize even today. It's a good. You're well rewarded if you actually go deep and check out the depth of the catalog there. There's some good material, and I can say that, Mitch, because it stood the test of time. People still like it now.
Yeah, they really do. So, on this episode, I've got Michael Lardie in the band, or from the band speaking, and I've got Mark Kendall with his wife, Bridget, talking about life on the road and how it is, how does that affect you at home? You brought Michael Lardie to the band, or did I get that wrong?
No, you got that absolutely right.
And how did you discover him, and why did you suggest him to Great White?
He was a second engineer in the studio that we were using. And I found Michael to be a first-class engineer. And as a musician, he was very competent at guitar and keyboards and arrangement and working on song constructions. And I found him a very good fit with myself, as well as thinking that he'd work out well with the band as well. Because, after the initial record that Great White put out on EMI, which was not a blazing success, there had to be a sense of reinvention of the band to get them re-signed and to get them productive again. Usually if you tank after a debut, you're a washout. But my perspective was, I've got a guitar player here with really excellent feel, and I've got a vocalist here who's got, I think it's fair to say, one of the all-time rock and roll voices. Mm-hmm. And I'm not prepared to throw that away. We've learned lessons through going through the process of the EMI, let's focus in here and make this work and make it productive and build on the strength. And instead of being a sort of Van Priest wannabe band, we moved to something that was, as I say, far closer to a 70s English blues rock band. And of course, we did things like put out 8-minute singles, and they worked.
And they did work, yeah. So,
Yep.
Michael joined me here to talk about their new YouTube channel, the official Great White TV channel that you can find on YouTube. And it's an interesting concept. They're going to, put up live clips. They're going to put up them on the bus and them in catering and them at the hotel and sort of give the fan an inside look. As somebody who worked in the industry and who managed, what's your take on this new way of getting to the public? Because you've got to do your Twitter, you've got to do the Facebook. It's kind of cool to have that connection with fans, don't you think?
I have mixed feelings about it, Mitch.
Okay.
For one thing, I think that a very important part of any creative entity is a sense of mystique and mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you show everybody your spotty butt all the time, people get bored of looking at your spotty butt. I think there are certain things that you don't expose. That said, I think there are things that, to point a camera at is valid and can be fun. You just got to be discerning as to what you put up.
Sure, but at the same time, in the new market where you don't have an MTV and you don't have, tour support, you've sort of got to do something that's unique and different and original to get fans interested.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the most important, unique, and individual thing that you should do is make a damn good record.
True.
And I think that is the most important thing. And it saddens me greatly that, I ask a lot of people, one of my stock questions is, quickly, name for me the last truly great rock and roll record you've heard. And a lot of people just go, well.
They say Kiss Monster.
Kiss Monster.
Kiss Sonic Boom.
What's really upsetting is if they turn around and say, goddamn Appetite for Destruction. I mean, God, that was in the last century. Let's have some more great rock and roll now.
Yeah, it's true. Well, listen, Michael also talks about Great White's last album, Elation, last studio album, because there was a live album after that. Listen, that was a very good, solid rock record. I mean, it's hard to compete in today's market. It's hard to get on Billboard and all that, but it was a very, and I know this sounds like I'm degrading it, but it was a very competent rock record. It did the job.
Well, for one thing, I was really pleased to see them actually make an album and be in the moment and be in the present and support their new frontman, Terry, in that way, because that gives him material that he's been a part of the creation of that he can perform.
Right.
And I think that's really, really important for a frontman. Yeah. When somebody has to take over from somebody else and live off the past, I think that's a really, really tough job for somebody to do. So for them to make new music, I thought was absolutely valid and worthwhile and vital. If I had a suggestion, I would have been tempted, if I'd been involved, to say, you know what, guys, Jack's running around calling himself Great Whites. Why don't you be brave and bold? Why don't you change the name of the band with a new frontman and call yourself House of Broken Love? There you've got, a sense of identity with the past, and you're also making a statement of, we've got a new frontman, we're stepping out.
Yeah, sort of like what Black Sabbath did when they went back with Dio in 2007, I guess it was, and they went by the name of Heaven and Hell. Kind of same approach.
Absolutely.
But let's turn this over to Michael, and let's listen to my wonderful conversation with Michael Lardie, which, by the way, I'll just add, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Just an absolute wonderful human being. Absolutely.
Michael and I worked shoulder to shoulder as writers, as producers. We worked out together. He is one individual I have never, ever had an argument with.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. So here's Michael. We're talking to a Great White Michael Lardie. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing terrific today, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. Always good to hear from you. So there's a lot going on with Great White in 2014. The first thing is the launch of this new Great White TV. What is Great White TV?
We had heard from a few people that there was an option through YouTube to actually create your own channel.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought about the concept of, when you want to serve up, your media, you want to be able to have a place for your fans to go to get the content that you want them to be getting, and obviously it's a very important thing for our fans to be watching the videos, with Terry and them.
Yeah.
And certainly, any live performances. And now pretty much that we have our own TV channel, we can pretty much put up the content that we come across, or the content that we certainly film out on the road. And we're certainly open to the concept of having people, submit the occasional thing to us, and if it makes sense to throw it up on the channel, we will.
Does that mean that you're going to sort of just dig into what's already, the treasures that are sitting in the vault kind of thing, or are you actually actively on tour going to be making new, live footage videos backstage, guys clowning around and all that stuff too? Or
yeah, we're going to try to add new content and keep it fresh, so people just don't go, oh, I've been to that channel, oh, that's what's on there, okay, fine, next. I think if we continue to feed content and do it, even if it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, at least it's something that people can go back to and they can be directed to through Facebook, and use the social media thing to keep that part of it active. So people get a little bit more of, say, a video dialogue of, what's going on with us out there on the road. I know that people have, commented of late that we look like we're having so much fun on stage, and I can assure you that we have just as much or more fun traveling, all the things that happen to us in a day. So hopefully we'll be able to get, capture some of that and get it up there.
I'm looking forward to it. They say content is king, right? So, you mentioned social media. The Great White is a band that sort of came out of the late '70s, early '80s, and MTV was the big thing. And if you weren't on MTV, you were nobody. And of course, you managed to be all over MTV. Social media is now the new thing. How important is it for a band like Great White, and how do you use it?
Well, I think it's important to make sure that you put yourself in front of the people that really only go to social media to get content.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have to do it, I think, intelligently, because a lot of our fan base are the ones that, it's funny, I was just talking to our publicist this morning and saying that a lot of our fan base wants to have the physical product in their hand.
Absolutely.
when we have new material out. That's where our fan base from that era came from. So they want to see the credits on the record. They want to see the pictures. They want to hold something tangible in their hands. And I think that's important, not to get so wrapped up in the social media that you forget that aspect of your fan base. So we're trying to do both, essentially. We're getting into the social media to be intelligent about reaching new people, but at the same time, we would never want to diss our fan base by, saying, oh, well, our content's only ever available on download. I don't know that, we're necessarily a band that's really thought of as to be a download band. I think a lot of people want to buy, like I say, a physical product. They want to see a CD.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I know that from a project that you were part of that I put together, the Kiss tribute, A World with Heroes. On iTunes, I had 11 bonus tracks, and people would still write me and say, "I want to buy the CD instead." And you went,
"Yeah,
but wait a minute,
physical."
You got 11 bonus tracks. What?
And they're going, no, we want the 25 or 30 that are on the original CD. That's what they want to have, that physical product. And I know that it was a treat for me to get mine in the mail from you, because, I could see my name amongst all the other artists that contributed to the thing. And there's that sense of, I don't know, coming up and making records and working on records in the late 70s and throughout the 80s and 90s and beyond, seeing that completed project, there's always that sense of pride that you have when you're holding that tangible piece of artwork and music in your hand that says, it's like but kind of captured, and that's a tangible thing that you can actually physically hold and say, I was lucky enough to be a part of that. So that's true of even the albums that we do, with songs that we created. I mean, having it mastered and having it, the physical product done and sent to you with the promo copies, you have that sense of like, wow, it's really a completed project now.
Yeah, it's really strange, and the people who did buy it on iTunes would write and say, "Can I have the who played on what and the sort of a digital booklet?" It was just mind-boggling that that people just really want something to hold. Speaking of something to hold, your last album was Elation. That was 2012, first with Terry. It's now 2014. Where are we in the next album phase?
The thing about being songwriters is that we're always working on, ideas, a riff here, a riff there. As was obvious with Elation, we had, two songs that we loved out of a number of demos when we went into the studio and composed the lion's share of the record on 30 days and recorded it and mixed it and mastered it. I mean, so...
Let me stop you there for a second, because the phone broke up for a second. You did the whole album in 30 days?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. The phone seems to drop out once in a while. But
yeah, so we did the entire album in 30 days. But you have to remember that in that 30 days, that was compositionally as well. We came up with 10 new tunes that we thought were superior to the ones that we had. And those are the ones that made it up on Elation. So it was a process that when we do actually get into the studio and block off 30 or 45 days, we could certainly deliver an album in that period of time. It's never something that we say we need 5 months, 8 months to do. I mean, the longest record historically that we took to do a record was Psycho City.
And that took how long?
That took 5 months, and we went to a residence and rented a mobile truck and recorded the basics, and then went back to LA and did the overdubs and mixed it, and it took just a skosh under 5 months. And obviously, it's one of my favorite records, if not the favorite, compositionally speaking. So it definitely, I think the record shows a bit something very cool for having taken that much time. But our normal time for doing records was always 45 to 60 days.
Wow. Now, the other thing I found cool about Elation was you got to work with George Tutko. Now, if you look at his CV, it's got Ozzy Osbourne, it's got Rod Stewart, it's got Kiss, John Mellencamp, Duran Duran. When you got a guy who's worked with artists of that ilk, how was it for you to get? First of all, how did you get him, and how was it working with him?
Well, he was a friend of Terry's, and he suggested that we do this. I mean, the record was mixed, and I now, mind you, I personally only had 7 days to mix 12 songs, so that's not normal, to be able to do that. But the guys just wanted to try that, and I've known George myself, through the business, and he's a respected dude. He definitely has had a touch on a lot of really great product over the years. Mm-hmm. And when it was suggested, have him take a stab at the mixing and stuff, I think it helped the whole project of the record, and it was interesting. You're working with him, but you're not really working with him. It's a different animal in that it's 2013 and you are, or late 2012.
Right.
He's doing the mixing in a studio and sending you MP3s to approve or to make mix comments and things like that. So you're not actually physically in the room with him, and that was a little bit different for me to go through that process, because we were always one to be immersed and involved in, the physical connection with all of us when we did records. So the whole vibe of doing records, in a different location and sending, MP3s out, it's a little bit different, for me.
Yeah, no, I just, in my own experience, again, with that project, all of it was done from my basement. There was no studio sessions. Everybody sent in a guitar part here and a drum part there and a vocal here. It really is just a completely different way of operating than, even 10 years ago, right?
Sure. I mean, when you went in to do a record, you came in as a band, and, you might not all be recording on the same day, but, you at least started the project, you worked out all the parts, you recorded all the parts, then you mixed the album, but everybody was, around and immersed in what we were doing as a project. When it comes piecemeal, like, it did with the Kiss record, and certainly, the mixes with George, it's a little unusual to get used to, but, it works. I mean, it's technology, and you can't turn your back on that. I mean,
No.
I would love to do records on 2-inch tape again. It's just not feasible to do it at this point.
No.
And if I ever have the opportunity to do it again, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because there's something to be said about the sonics that are involved with the 2-inch tape, and even, mastering to vinyl and stuff like that. I don't know if, I'm getting a sense that people are starting to be interested in the vinyl thing again. It's pretty encouraging.
Yeah, it's growing, though I think that the growth will be finite in the sense that, people can't put a vinyl record in the dashboard of the car. Right? There's only so much you can do. Let's just talk quickly about making records. Great White has 35 years of history. You've got a lot of great songs in the back catalog. Are albums even necessary anymore? I mean, you could make probably the same living just by going out and playing your best 20 songs, right? Why make
Sure,
new albums?
I suppose you could do that, but I mean, if we, as a group of people, and I know Mark and I feel the same way about this, if we just became a greatest hits band, to us as artists, it would make sense no more. Essentially,
Okay.
That's what drives us to create something new and to go through the process, and that's the hook for us, to continually create something new, lay it on our fans, and hope that they accept it. It's all part of the dance that we've done for, like you say, 35 years.
Right.
And I don't think we're ready to stop dancing, so to speak. We enjoy that part of it too much, and the challenge of creating, and hopefully, every time you go to do a project, that you become a better songwriter. Hopefully, you perform better on the records, and you perform better as a group. It's all something that, you keep striving for. And I think when that striving, loses its luster, and you fall into that trap of becoming the greatest hits band, I think that's the time that perhaps we might say, bid it a fond to do. But I don't see that happening for us anytime real soon, thankfully. So we just keep pushing forward.
No, and I think a lot of that has also to do with Terry coming into the band. He's really added a nice dimension vocally and in terms of showmanship. I mean, it's fun to see a Great White show.
Yeah, there is an energy that is apparent. I suppose one could liken it to, you've been in a marriage for so long and it falls apart, and for whatever reason, and all of a sudden you get a new girlfriend and it's all new again, and you just have this energy and vitality to what you're doing. And his approach to the old songs as well as the new songs, there is a touch, of his personality in it, that infuses that spark of us wanting to, go out there and do it and have fun doing it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, back in 2003, you joined Night Ranger, and you stayed with them for about four or 5 years. Just tell me a little bit about how it was being with Night Ranger. I mean, another great American band with, classic songs that sort of everybody could sing, even if they don't realize that it's a Night Ranger song. How was it playing with that band for 4 years?
Well, it was terrific. I mean, I know that when everybody in Great White decided to sort of take a hiatus, which was in late 2001, because Great White had been my every waking thought for nearly 20 years at that point, I was a little bit concerned, where you sit there and you try to figure out what it is you're going to do next, because anything and everything that you thought about or, worked toward creating things was immersed in the Great White experience. And, we had worked with Jack Blades on on Can't Get Up From Here record, and, he and I hit it off years ago when we opened up for him in '87, which was a great experience. It helped us break the song Rock Me, being in front of the numbers of people that we were during that time. So, I never forgot that about the band, and was always, very grateful for, them helping us and giving us the opportunity at that point. But Jack and I always hit it off when we started working together in the studio, and it just kind of rolled into it. And he had asked me in late 2002, what are you going to do? I mean, you're not doing anything. I mean, you're not playing with anybody else. You're not working with anybody else. And they were at a point with Fitz, the original keyboard player, that they wanted to make a change because of where he was at, in terms of his feeling about, continuing on doing what he was doing. And he was in a bunch of different projects, so they asked me to sub for them for a while. And I said, sure, man, it'd be a great experience. And after about 20 days, they were kind of like, Fitz, we're going to keep going ahead with Michael here, which is a great compliment to me. I mean, I think the only thing I would say that I would miss, from what my normal duties were with Great White, playing with Night Ranger, is I didn't really get the opportunity to play guitar, but really, what am I going to contribute to Brad Gillis and Jeff Watson? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
so it was kind of like that was where that was at, and but I was very content, and we had worked on a studio record and did some re-records of the old classic stuff, so that was a great experience for me to play all those parts that Fitz came up with and replicate those, and also work on a brand new studio record and during that process of that 4 or 5 years. So it was a terrific experience, and I felt very gratified that they were confident in my abilities to feel like I had something to contribute to what they were doing. So I will always be grateful for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, a great band, and of course, Brad Gillis. I mean, listen, he's the only guy, I think, who could have stepped into Ozzy's band and replaced Randy Rhoads competently. I mean, he did a great job in those months with Ozzy, and, what are you going to do? You can't push him out of it.
It was an interesting time, too, at that time, because I think Ozzy really believed that that's where things were going to go, and he was going to go forward with Brad, and Night Ranger was right at that precipice of getting the deal and getting the first record done, and Brad had to really mull that over in his head as to which way to go.
Yeah, he really did, and I think the history is on his side. Choosing Night Ranger was certainly a great move, not because Ozzy would have been a bad move, but Ozzy likes to change guitars, it seems, every 3 or 4 albums, and so Brad could have been out of a job by 1985. So
and who's to say that his compositions would have been contributing to what Ozzy was doing. Right. I mean, Ozzy was obviously writing with a bunch of different writers at that point, and he didn't really have the time to develop that special relationship that he had with Randy, with Brad. So, going with Night Ranger, I think, allowed Brad to really bring the most of himself in terms of a writer to the situation. And I think, like you said, ultimately, history is on his side with that.
Yeah, I don't think I could have heard Ozzy singing "Don't Tell Me You Love Me." That probably wouldn't have worked too well.
Probably not.
Probably not. Let's finish off with this. What are we doing in terms of touring for 2014? Are we on the road pretty much till December?
Yeah, it's more of what we do, and it's interesting too because we basically took the gloves off our agents, by saying, don't book. We used to say, it's the quiet time. Don't try to book us in November, December, January, February. We basically took the gloves off of him and say, it's like the Field of Dreams thing. If they build it, we'll play it. And we are getting dates that are not typical in terms of what time of year. So our summer is obviously, very booked already. I mean, in the sense that we've got like 11 or 12 a month, for the next 4 months.
Wow.
And we're loving that. We love to do the hard work during the high season, but we enjoy working 2 or 3 shows in the quiet months as well. So I think that hopefully by the end of the year we'll be clocking in around 60, 65 dates. Which
is actually pretty good. Now, of course, we need to get you somewhere close to me. I'm out in Montreal, so we need you somewhere in the vicinity. But you got to we'll get you east, right, at some point.
Yeah, I would think so. We're doing some Canadian stuff this year in Regina and also in
Calgary.
In Calgary again. So we got to get to the east side because with Alice Cooper years ago, we did everything from St. John's all the way to Vancouver.
Yeah. And it's time. The funny thing about when you talk to a band about playing in Canada, you'll say, I live in Montreal, you should come play here. And they go, well, we're playing in Kamloops in Vancouver. And you go, well, that's not exactly next door.
Well, no, I mean, people don't realize their geography. It's like saying, I live in Buffalo, but we're playing San Francisco. Sure, you can make that one.
Yeah, I'll just put you on the guest list for that. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Right.
Where can people find you online?
It's official Great White, greatwhiterocks.com. We have Great White Band on Facebook. Going to the Great White Rocks is the page that's the most updated tour dates. It's interesting this year. We do have some that are in the box that for whatever reason with the advertising people from the venues that are coming up, they have to wait till a certain period of time to start their advertising and to announce it. So we've got stuff that we're chomping at the bit to announce, but because of advertising schedules, we have to respect and adhere to that. So I would just suggest to all our fans to continue to check back every week because there are new dates getting added all the time.
Yeah, and that's the way. And of course, I'm looking at the dates right now. I see that right after Christmas in Colorado, you're doing a special acoustic show. So that'll be kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's a great venue. We actually did that at the early part of this year, and it went so well that they called us back to do it again. It's a different acoustic thing than just the bongos and the shakers. We did it like we did Unplugged, where it's a full drum set, and Mark and I play acoustic guitars. So it has some force and some concussion, when it's hitting, but it's got that more swampy feel because of the acoustic guitars. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, for the acoustic, but it has the energy of real drums. So in fact, I think we're going to continue to do all of our acoustic shows that way because it's been going over so well.
Actually, yeah. As I look scroll through these, I see one in June. I see one in August. So yeah, hopefully people can go to Great White, the YouTube TV, Great White TV, and they'll see some footage of that because that's certainly something I would like to check out.
Yeah, we getting people and our friends that come to the shows to even shoot a minute here, 5 minutes here, because we it's our channel, we control the content of it, so. Expect to see some stuff out from the road this year.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mitch. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and someone who is such a true fan of music and gets what Great White is all about.
Yeah, and it's been a long, long time. Boy, I bought even way before what was it? Shot in the Dark, was that the name of the album? No.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
one in '86, and there was one in '84, simply called Great White. So that was actually when the band toured with Priest on the Defenders of the Faith tour. So you're going way back now.
Yeah, I'm going way back. No, I mean, I admit I started off at the second or third album. I wasn't there right from the start, but it's still been, a good 30 years, almost 28 years, I guess, if that one came out in '86 of supporting the band. So,
We can't be that old, Mitch, can we?
No, I'm only 29 right now, so.
I like that, But Kelly Kagi, bless his heart, has this great expression, and I'll share it with everyone on your show. When you get to a certain age, you're referred to as 29.
Yeah, exactly. See, I'm 29 right now, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, sir. I gotta go. I got Mark Kendall calling in a minute.
Well, thank you, and go enjoy that, and tell him I said hey.
Will do. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mitch.
There you go, Alan. That was our interview with Michael Lardy. I hope you learned something new.
Oh, I know Michael pretty well.
I know. I'm being somewhat facetious, but, there you go. And, of course, we always have to remind the folks that One-on-One is brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival, which, of course, takes place August 9th and 10th at Parc Jean-Drapeau in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, featuring Metallica, Body Count, Slayer, Lamb of God, Nashville Pussy, Twisted Sister, Anthrax, and so many more. You cannot miss this festival. Beautiful island in downtown Montreal, the St. Lawrence running behind the main stage. It doesn't get more rock and roll than that. Of course, the website is heavymontreal.com. Let's get into part 2 of this episode. Mark Kendall joined me with his wife. I don't think he's ever done an interview with his wife before, and in fact, other than maybe Yoko Ono doing interviews with John, or maybe Linda doing interviews with Paul, you don't really see wives come on and do interviews with their husbands. It was very interesting, actually. What are your thoughts on Mark? To me, he's one of those great underrated guitarists. You say, "Wow, who's the greatest guitarist?" You go, "Oh, Eddie Van Halen. Oh, Jimi Hendrix. Oh." But somewhere on that list, Mark Kendall belongs, right?
Well, let's take the first part of that.
Okay.
I have absolutely no problem with Mark doing an interview with his soulmate, and those two have been very, very good for each other. They have an incredibly loving and healthy relationship, and she's a smart and spirited woman, and I'm sure she's got some interesting things to say. And as for Kendall as a guitarist, I'm forever, whenever making a comment in public, pointing out that I think he's one of the most underrated guitar players of the 80s, or of any period, because he is somebody who plays with a tremendous sense of feel, and there is heart in everything he does. I used to love working with him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, we'll talk maybe more about Mark at the end. Why don't we just go ahead and listen to this? Here is Mark Kendall and his wife, Bridget. And we're back with Mark Kendall and his wife, Bridget. How are you?
We're good. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Mitch. How you doing, man?
Good. Always good. Always a pleasure to talk to the guys from Great White. I just spoke to Michael Lardy not too long ago, and he updated us on stuff. But Mark, you're here with your wife today.
Yeah, this is kind of a first timer. She's with the Facebook and everything, she's in touch with a lot of the fans, and she's been involved with this stuff and seen a lot.
Yeah, so let's get to that in a second, but let's just quickly get your version of what's going on with Great White. Elation came out in 2012. We're now 2014. How far along in the process are we for a new Great White album?
I would say by the end of the year we'll be in the studio. That's my prediction. I've been writing like silly, and I'm really got a great feel for Terry now, and I'm really looking forward to making a new record.
Yeah. It's great. It's great that the band still make records. What keeps you motivated in making new records? Because with the internet and this and that, and you have like
Right.
35 years of pedigree. You could go play the shows and put together your 20 greatest hits. What motivates you
Yeah.
to get new music going?
Well, that's the motivation for me. I mean, I'm pretty sure the rest of the guys feel the same way. That's why we still do what we do, is because we allow ourselves to make new music. If I didn't make new music, I would really feel stagnant, and
Right.
and there might be a risk of me going through the motions. If I was just forced just to go out and play the catalog and Once Bitten, Twice Shy and all that, I mean, I love playing those songs, but I still need to continue to be creative, or else I just get into boredom. I need to keep making music.
Yeah.
That's my motivation, making new music.
So Bridget, let me ask you, what do you think of Mark and the band making new music? Do you sit back and say, "Hey, listen, guys, just go play your hits. Why stress yourselves out?"
I'm always encouraged when he's creating new stuff with his guitar and playing. So I love the new music. I mean, I love the older stuff and the hits, of course, but I'm always encouraged when they're writing and when they're creating new stuff. Absolutely.
Does it become how can I put this? Is it more stressful around the household when they're trying to be creative, or is it actually more more pleasant in a sense that, oh, look at that, they got the creative juices flowing, and this is great stuff?
I think it's definitely pleasant. It's definitely a positive thing. I love to. We have guitars in every room, so it's always nice when he's picking up the guitar and I can hear him playing something, and then I can see what it becomes, and it's always exciting, I think, when they're in the creative process and the writing process, and then what manifests from that is always.
I'm always walking
exciting.
around like a zombie when I'm in writing mode too, and she knows I got riffs going in my head. I look like a space cadet, but she knows what's going on.
Yeah,
and even if we're not in writing mode, I mean, if he's watching, we could be watching a movie and all of a sudden he'll pick up his guitar. It isn't like, we're in the middle of a movie. It's always just, we pause it, we wait, because it's important. This is who he is. So it's always nice.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that creative process. Is it really where you have to sort of stop everything and pick up a guitar right away and everything else must wait? Or can you sort of go, okay, at 6 o'clock, I'll go up and write for 10 minutes?
I don't do that because I'd rather, it's too much like what work or something when I do it that way. It's better for me if I just, I'm in this like kind of mode where I'm thinking of riffs and stuff like that, but I kind of wait till they come. And I've just kind of learned from the past, if I don't put the idea like on my phone or on some little micro cassette player or something, I might at least lose. I might not totally lose the riff, but sometimes I'll lose, the way my body was, the frequency and the vibe and the rhythmical thing I have going at that time. If I wait until the next day and finish the movie or whatever I'm doing, I never can really get back to the way I was feeling at that moment. So I've learned the hard way to don't be lazy, put your idea down, and you know what I mean?
It must be easier these days, though, with all the technology around from, you can just sort of play it into your iPhone or plug into your computer compared to back in the 80s. The 80s, you sort of had to wait till you got into a studio kind of thing.
I still do it old school in that way. I've just put things down on cassette players or like on my phone or something, just so I don't lose the riff or just the spark of an idea or whatever. And then later, work it into some orchestration type thing.
Gotcha.
And even the way we record in the studio, we can see each other when we're playing. We don't, go in with the mindset of modern technology or whatever. We still play live together, and so our thinking's old school, but the editing and all that, of course, is a lot faster and stuff with the with the computer, Pro Tools and whatnot. But
Yeah, so let's get into the whole touring situation because that was what I was going to go for today. Great White is doing upwards of 70 shows this year, and of course that means you have to leave home. Is it still exciting for you, Mark, to be out on the road?
I still love, I love playing live. I mean, as far as like hardcore touring and stuff, like where you go out on a bus for 2 years and stuff like that, I'm kind of not really into that anymore, but I still like to go. Our fans are so loyal and hardcore, I love to go play for them, and performing live is one of my favorite things.
Right.
And when the record's done, I always love that part too, because you can kind of you go through the whole process of the writing, the initial raw idea, and see it develop. But I kind of get a little anxious, for it to be finished and stuff like that, and then when it's finished, I go, now what, but it's just the playing live is the most fun for me. I just like it. I like to go and play live.
Yeah, and that's what I want to ask Bridget. Now, you just heard Mark say that it was the most fun for him, but how is it for you? Because now when Mark leaves for those 70 dates, plus the travel, you're probably looking at 75 to 80 days all told. That means you're at home, paying all the bills and taking out all the garbage and doing all that stuff. How is it for you when he's on the road? Is it as much fun?
Well, life's always in session, so I know that he trusts me and he leaves me at home to make sure that everything is in running order, and I'm accountable for that. And so, it's our life. It's what we do. I mean, I know that this is how he makes our living, and it's a blessing. It's an absolute blessing what he does. It does get difficult. There's some times that he leaves on Thursday and we're both like, okay, see you Sunday. And it's an easy, stressless weekend. And then there's other times when, he leaves on Thursday and I'm crying or I'm sobbing and I don't want to let him go. And then, I'm counting, those couple of days until he's home again. And so it's our life. It's not something that, I think is as difficult as it was when he would, go away for weeks at a time or months at a time. And, Europe is always difficult because of the time schedule and, talking. And sometimes he's at hotels that, there's one phone for the whole hotel and he doesn't have service or, that kind of thing. But, we get through it and we take it as it comes. And, I don't think that it's ever easy, but, at the end of the day, it's always worth it. So it's all good.
Why not join him on those trips, though? What's the? I mean, I guess there's the real problem being the cost, because you can't have the tour pick up the cost for all the wives and stuff. But do you go on the road with him once in a while?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can pick and choose, and I let him know I want to go to this show or I'm planning on this one. And he does travel so much, so we do accumulate a lot of miles. There's, usually, I don't want to say a surplus, but there's always, miles. Or, if I want to go to a show, I go to a show. A lot of it was I really don't, I don't care for flying that much. So if I can drive, that's better for me. But, and if I can drive, just for the record, but I, I pick and choose and I go if I want to go, and I always enjoy. And, when I travel with them, and it makes me appreciate that much more what they do, because it's not easy. My butt is kicked. He comes home on Sunday and we get him unpacked, his laundry's done, everything's put away. My suitcase will sit for a couple of days because I'm just beat from, 2 shows, leaving on Thursday, coming home Sunday. So, it definitely makes me appreciate, what he does for our family, for sure.
And when he comes back on the Sunday night and he says, I'm tired, you go, oh, yeah, okay, I get it, right?
No, that's so right. It makes me think twice before I say, okay, well, this needs to be done. This needs, because I get it. Absolutely.
And sometimes the trips are longer, sometimes we'll have maybe 5 shows and doesn't make sense to come home. So
those ones I go with. Like we did that in Cleveland. Remember, Daddy, when you played?
Oh yeah.
Scorpions? And then we drove through Michigan, and it was absolutely beautiful. And we did a couple of shows. And
that's when we played with the Scorpions that time or something.
Yeah. And
it drove. I remember that.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And if we can plan something like that, where we can rent a car and we can drive and we make a little adventure out of it, then that's always fun for sure.
Now, the one question I really had for you, Bridget, is, with online and Twitter and Facebook and all that, and of course, with, the recent changes in lead singers, and all, there's always a fan that has something negative to say. And it's not just about Great White, it's about Kiss, it's about, Aerosmith, it's about whoever. As a wife, when you see that and you read that, how does that make you feel?
It's always hurtful. As a wife, I don't like to see things being said about my husband that are, hurtful or unkind. Or, what's worse is when I see something that isn't true.
Which is most of it.
And it is hard. I don't like it. But I've just learned that everybody's entitled to their opinion, and what they think is none of my business. And, this is who he is, and I love him, and I know him. And sometimes I get so angry, and, and he's just like, just don't worry about it. It's okay. And then sometimes I even get where I type a response and then I delete it. And I'll pray about it and I just let it go. And it's like, okay, I'm over it. And so, I would say 99.99% of the time, I just keep my mouth shut. If it doesn't glorify, edify, or uplift, then I don't need to say it, because it's not going to do any good. And that's what they want. I'm feeding the fuel. And I don't need to do that. I don't need to feed the fire. That's for sure.
Oh, no, because, if you do that right away, you've just prolonged the whole debate or the whole discussion, and now they're going to start attacking you. It's going to be...
and I dignify it. And I'm dignifying their negativity with the response. And I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Okay.
Yeah, I did something the other day. Well, I was on the show the other day, and we kind of got into the subject, and I said I basically don't give, I've been dealing with haters for a long, being on the internet, you get haters. There's people that just, all they do is just go and tell people they suck, and you know what I mean?
And all the time. I see it all the time.
Yeah, I just don't give them any of my energy whatsoever. It's like I don't even... I just don't give them any attention. But anyways, like I said, I was on the show there, and we were talking about this with Joe Rogan or whatever, and he was telling me that he also has dealt with, being a stand-up comedian and stuff like that, hecklers, and he goes, but sometimes these negative people, I mean, if you're them, you're just living in this poison world where you're just kind of negative. He goes, sometimes people that have negative comments about you, they might have a point where you can maybe work on that one thing. But, I was basically just talking about people that just hate. That's what they do. They just, it's like they just waste all their energy on this, negative, spewing of just negativity and bashing other people. It just seems like,
I don't understand it, though. That's what's hard for me, is everybody has their opinion. It's like we all have different tastes in music, and I don't particularly care for some, but I'm not going to go online and say, well, this sucks or that sucks, because you know what? That's somebody's kid, and that's somebody's husband.
Yeah.
And somebody may not like my husband's music, but I don't want them to tell me my husband sucks, because he doesn't.
Yeah.
They just don't care for his
But
music.
the thing is, the point being, no matter what this hater says, I'm still the guitar player in my band, and nothing's really changing, because of this guy's hateful words. I mean, I'm still going to go along and do what I do, and you know what I mean? It's to be that person, though, that is the hater. They must live in the darkest, I would just hate to live in that poisonous place, where that's what they do,
And what I find interesting, because you mentioned Joe Rogan and comedians, it's certainly valid once in a while to say, okay, that joke didn't pan out, and Joe, you can do better than that, which seems to be a fair kind of criticism. But with bands in particular, it's like, listen, the new album doesn't sound like Once Bitten, Twice Shy, therefore you suck. And it's like, well, how does that make
Yeah.
sense? Just
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it did, I would worry. I mean, if everything we put out sounded like, what we did the last time or whatever, that it
But
would
that's
be
the problem.
like, boy, you better come up with something new, buddy, or you ain't going to last long, you know what I mean?
But if it did sound like Once Bitten, Twice Shy, if every album sounded like that, you would suck too, because you're not moving forward. You're in this constant lose-lose situation, and I just don't understand those fans. I mean, you can either take it or leave it, but why you have to go online and start doing? I don't understand it. I really don't.
It just seems like so much wasted energy to go find things you hate instead of finding things you like and talk about that, and just don't talk about the stuff you hate.
Yeah,
I don't know. Whatever.
Years ago, and I used to write album reviews, and a lot of the reviews that I would publish ended up with a 7 on 10 or an 8 on 10 and 9 on 10. And somebody wrote in and said, well, why are all your reviews positive? And I wrote back and I said, well, why am I going to write about the one that got a 2 on 10 in my opinion? It's not worth my time to write about it.
Sure.
I want to tell you about something that's good and that's uplifting and that you'll want to go buy. Why am I going to tell you this album really sucks? Don't buy. I mean, you've now read.
You didn't become a journalist to ruin people.
No, the whole point is to get people excited and to get them to the shows and to get them to buy the album. It's not anyway. Speaking of getting people to the shows and exciting stuff, Great White now has Great White TV. Can you tell me a little bit about your concept with Great White TV? It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason we did it is just to keep people updated on what we're up to, with our videos and whatnot. And also, we want to start working on bringing the fans behind the scenes a little bit more, and filming on the road. Because, being fans ourselves, like I'm the biggest, geekiest fan you could ever imagine, and I have all my guitar heroes and bands from my past that made me want to play, and I've always wondered, what do they do when they're not on stage? So I'm sure our fans are the same way. It's like, what's their daily routine like? I mean, what do they do when they're not playing, and what's the sound check like and stuff like that. So we wanted to have our own forum where people could go and kind of just trip on us, in the airport, and just our daily goofing around and going through our stuff, And we decided it'd be great to make our own, YouTube TV or whatever for the people to go to.
Yeah, it's interesting that we can do that in this day and age. I think back in the 80s especially, there was a disconnect. You did an album, you showed up and played in Des Moines, Iowa, and then they wouldn't see from you for the next 3 years until the next tour came through. Now social media has changed all of that, and Great White really works the Facebook and the Twitter and all that stuff very well. How do you incorporate that into the band, and how has it changed things for you?
Things really have changed in the past, and there's of course there's positives and negatives, but one of the things that have changed for me is I really take that time on stage, like the desperado. I mean, I want to play my the best I have to offer every time I hit the stage. And a lot of that reason is because the fans are so loyal. I want them to be impressed by our show. I don't want to just be mildly entertaining, or what I mean. So I really do, for all the work we do with the traveling and everything, I want to really take advantage of that time on stage. Where I think I've kind of learned from the past, pre-internet days and YouTubes and all that, where maybe I didn't take every show so seriously, and not seriously, but you know what I mean.
You go through the motions at some point.
It was there was a few times where I went through the motions, and maybe I could have done better. To where now, if you play a subpar show, it's on the internet with within 2 minutes all over the country, you know, right after you get off stage. So you better show up and you better play good, you know. And so, you know, there's that reason. Plus, you know, like just live. I mean, I want our band to come off like killer, you know, and I want us, you know, I want the fans to keep coming back, and I want them to get their money's worth, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
So,
speaking of money's worth, let's end with this one. What does Terry, the singer, bring to the band? Terry, what does he bring to the band?
I'll tell you this: more energy than we used to, which is really good for us. It keeps us motivated. And his energy's positive also, which is really, really good. And he's if he's around me and I have a guitar in my hand and any kind of music comes out of me at all, he starts jumping around, singing, writing stuff down. I mean, it's that's what he brings is you know, just that spark and it vibrates. His frequency, the way the guy vibrates, is very, very positive. And every night when he goes on stage, he is there to show up. I mean, he really, really delivers. Even when he's not feeling good, he's told me he's sick before, and he goes out and just sings perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking, you know, what are we going to cancel a few shows, or you know what I mean? And this guy just goes out and kills it. You know, so. I just love the guy as a person. He's very, very good guy, you know, and he sings his butt off, man. The guy, and that's why I'm looking forward to making some new music, because I've really learned how he sings. I know where he's super strong, and I really wanted to come up with things that is going to complement that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing that I would like to see as a fan is, you know, Great White has done a few acoustic shows, and you're doing like 3 or 4 in the remainder of the year. And of course, like you mentioned, it shows up on YouTube. I would like to see one of those shows captured and put on album or made available as a download or something, because the band just sounds great.
Absolutely.
You just sound great doing that acoustic.
We've even talked about doing just kind of a little acoustic album, maybe, of just giving people a different look on some of our older material and some new stuff. You know, performing songs that you've heard in the past that give you a total acoustical kind of look to it. And, you know, kind of deliver it in a different way, kind of in the mode of the way Eric Clapton did Layla, you know what I mean? But maybe not that drastic, but you know what I'm saying? Like just a different look to some older songs, and we thought that would be really fun for the fans and for us as well.
Yeah, and I think you did, you know, back on the what was it, the Sail Away album, you had some nice acoustic arrangements and stuff going on some of the songs. It'd be nice to bring that back and, you know, really get it out there. I think that would be fantastic. You know, listen,
we love doing that too.
We've reached the 25-minute mark. See how that was nice and painless, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's always great talking with you.
Thank you, Mark. And Bridget, thank you for joining us on this. I think you added a really nice perspective, and I think maybe some of the haters out there will think twice before posting stuff. And you know, I think it'll make people reflect that when these guys go on the road, they're leaving their families and they're going out there and they're doing it for you, the fans. They're shaking their bonbons for you guys, and you know, it's worth appreciating. It really is worth appreciating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's not done without sacrifice.
Yes. Well, thank you, and thank you for asking me. It was great, and it was awesome.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bridget.
Thanks, Mitch.
Bye now.
Yeah, bye.
There's our wonderful chat with Mark and Bridget. You know, you've been on the road and away from family. You heard Mark and Bridget describe sometimes the challenges. Did you have personal challenges like that as well, where, you know, you're gone for 2 months at a time or 3 months at a time and you just don't see home?
I tried very hard back in the day to limit my absence from my family and my home, and I tried to keep it to no more than 6 weeks at the longest.
But even that's very long.
Yeah, it is, especially when you have young kids and
Sure.
you miss them and they miss you.
And you
But
come home and they're twice the size. You go, wait a minute, you were only up
I
to my
know.
knee when I left. Now you're up to my, belly button. What happened there?
Well, it's worse than that. It's when you get to the front door, the wife meets you and puts a name tag on your lapel. Um, but
That's
back
funny.
in the day, I had both Great White and Guns N' Roses going 19 to the dozen, so that was very exhausting. And they pulled me away from family, and there were times when I had an extreme reluctance to go out on the road because I didn't want to be pulled away from the family. But you just deal with it and you make the most of it, and you make the most of your time wherever you're at, whoever you're with. You give them all your energy and concentration. Fortunately, I have a great relationship with my kids today, so I must have done a reasonable job because they don't look at me and say, "Who are you?"
Yeah, it's absolutely challenging. By the way, you just mentioned Guns N' Roses and Great White in the same sentence. They didn't play a lot of shows together. In fact, I can only think of one, or maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but they both did that famous Ritz show back in 80, 86, 87.
Guns opened once for Great White at the Santa Monica Civic.
Okay.
Guns were going to open for Great White at the Ritz because I put them on the bill. And at the moment the Ritz occurred was about the time that Appetite was going thermonuclear. So we let Guns close that night. And I'd had this little fantasy. It was just a personal indulgence, but I rather wanted my lads to play together in LA, play together once in New York, and maybe play together in London. But after the Ritz gig, I kind of shelved that idea.
Yeah, that's got to be it's got to be strange position to be in as a manager because you always want your band, to get the bigger dressing room and the bigger venue and the prime stage time. And here you had two bands on the same bill, and you sort of had to say, oh, okay, we're going to have to swap this out. And was that sort of an uncomfortable decision, or was that just, listen, that's what has to be done, and everybody understood?
It wasn't even so much that kind of consciousness, Mitch.
Okay.
You got to realize that basically my formative years were in the late 60s, early 70s, so I'm a little bit of an old hippie. I walk around barefoot all the time. And from my point of view, it was just, I like the sense of family. I like people to be able to get along together and play together. And that was my motivation. It's the same today. My partner Heather and I put on a benefit in Prescott, Arizona for the Yarnell fire disaster last autumn. And everybody on the bill was a troubadour artist. And they all got along and they had a great day. The only one who wasn't a troubadour artist was the headliner, Slash, but he played with troubadour musicians. I just like that vibe. I like people to get along. I like them to switch hit. I like them to play on each other's teams every now and then. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and of course, for those who don't know, Troubadour is your record company. And is that where the band Razor is going to be coming out on?
Yes, Razor will be coming out with a Troubadour logo, and of course we have Chris Buck and Sally Ann Evans and Storm of Perception and one or two other things. And we may be crazy for making albums in this day and age, but I love the form and I love the process, so we keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll do the plugs for Razor. We'll go to razorband.com, and of course Chris Buck, incredible talent. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to his version of Sure Know Something, the Kiss cover, go find that on iTunes because it is absolutely brilliant. And
Tony Montana, who used to be in Great White, did the vocals on it. So there I am again. I'm cross-pollinating the musicians I love and pulling them together and seeing what they do.
And wow, they did it great. So razorband.com, and of course, this episode of One on One was brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival taking place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, August 9th and 10th. And of course, we've told you about Metallica, we've told you about Slayer, Anthrax, and Twisted Sister, but we haven't told you about Bad Religion, Pennywise, Hatebreed, Body Count, Overkill, 3 Days Grace, Exodus. Boy, there's just too many bands, but you got to come on out. And of course, there's Monster Truck, which I think is going to be the next great thing coming out of Canada. So heavymontreal.com is the website, and there you go. Another episode. Alan, pleasure.
Mitch, there's no such thing as too many bands. That's like saying you have too many guitars. It's an impossibility.
Well, what I should have said then is so many great bands.
There you go.
But it really is. It's one of. Here's how I qualify the Heavy Montreal Festival time and time again with a very unique story I have. Rob Halford played the festival a couple of years ago, and I was down at the end of the stairs at the end of his set, and he walked off the stage, and I looked at him and I said, "So Rob, how was it?" And he said, "That was the absolute best festival I have ever played." He said, "The organizers are wonderful." He said, "The venue is beautiful. The sound was fantastic. The crowd was fantastic." You know, listen, when a guy like Rob Halford, who's played everywhere, says that specifically about this, you know something's going on that's done right.
Absolutely, and it sounds like I should start checking flights.
Yep. Oh yes, and you know, hopefully the Metal God will be up here someday, and hopefully Razor will be on the festival someday. That would be the ultimate, I think.
It's something to look forward to, and the way you make this festival sound, Mitch, I think I might just pack a suitcase and move to Montreal if it's that cool.
It is, and the fun thing is this year it starts. There's a pre-night on the Friday, which is August 8th, and of course August 8th, 1992 was when Guns N' Roses blew up the Big O in Montreal. So it all ties in somehow. Right.
Everything's circular, Mitch, and it's good to see at the end of the circle there's a really positive vibe and a really positive gig.
Well, there you go. And always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure to sit with you, Mitch, and thank you for the privilege.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan.